Think you know everything about this cult Halloween classic? From the taxi star who became Dracula to the witch who sparked an affair scandal that never happened, this disco-ending TV special hides bizarre secrets, including a future Munster, an Emmy-winning makeup artist's triumph, and a filming location where prisoners built the walls. Prepare to discover why this 1979 treasure almost stayed lost forever. Fact 1. Actually premiered in 1979, not 1976. If you've been telling people that the Halloween that almost wasn't came out in 1976, you're not alone, but you've been getting the date wrong this whole time. The special actually premiered on ABC on October 28, 1979, just 3 days before Halloween that year. This confusion has persisted for decades, possibly because the special has such a classic, timeless feel that makes it seem older than it actually is, or perhaps because people simply misremember when they first saw it as children. The late 70s timing is actually crucial to understanding some of the special's more peculiar creative choices, particularly its disco-influenced ending that directly parodied Saturday Night Fever, which had only come out 2 years earlier in 1977. The 1979 premiere date also places it right in the middle of a golden age for holiday television specials, when networks were churning out seasonal programming that would become beloved traditions for families across America. ABC clearly had high hopes for the special, giving it a prime Sunday evening time slot just before Halloween to maximize viewership among families looking for Halloween entertainment that was spooky but still appropriate for children. Fact 2. Filmed at a Gothic mansion built by prisoners. The creepy castle setting that serves as Count Dracula's domain wasn't created on a soundstage with painted backdrops and artificial walls. Instead, the entire special was filmed at Lyndhurst, a genuine Gothic revival mansion located in Tarrytown, New York, along the Hudson River. What makes this location even more fascinating is its dark construction history. The limestone blocks used to build the mansion's walls were actually quarried by prisoners from the nearby Sing Sing Correctional Facility back in the 1800s. Inmates from one of America's most notorious prisons literally provided the manual labor that created the building blocks for this mansion, adding an unintentional layer of authenticity to its use as a monster's lair. Lyndhurst itself is a stunning example of Gothic revival architecture, designed by Alexander Jackson Davis and completed in 1842, with later additions made in the 1860s. The mansion's dramatic towers, pointed arches, and sprawling rooms made it the perfect setting for a Halloween special featuring classic movie monsters. The estate has appeared in numerous other films and television shows over the years, but the Halloween that almost wasn't remains one of its most memorable uses, taking full advantage of the mansion's naturally spooky atmosphere without needing to add much in the way of set decoration. Fact 3. VHS release got a completely different title. When the Halloween that almost wasn't finally made its way to home video in 1992, more than a decade after its original broadcast, someone at the distribution company decided that the original title just wasn't going to cut it for the VHS market. So they completely changed it to The Night Dracula Saved the World, a title that puts Count Dracula front and center and makes the stakes sound much more dramatic and epic. This wasn't just a subtitle addition or a small tweak, but a full replacement that essentially rebranded the entire special for a new generation of viewers who might be browsing video store shelves looking for Halloween entertainment. The new title emphasizes the plot more directly, focusing on Dracula's role as the hero who must convince the witch to change her mind about canceling Halloween, whereas the original title was more whimsical and mysterious, leaving viewers to wonder what could possibly threaten Halloween itself. This kind of retitling was actually fairly common in the home video era, when distributors believed that different titles would perform better in rental stores than whatever had been used for theatrical or television releases. The change has caused significant confusion among fans over the years, with some people only knowing the special by one title or the other, leading to situations where people don't realize they're talking about the same program. Fact 4. The witch caused a real-life marriage scandal. Mariette Hartley, who played the Halloween-hating witch, and Judd Hirsch, who portrayed Count Dracula, had such natural chemistry on screen that viewers watching the special became convinced the two actors must be married to each other in real life. This wasn't just a handful of confused fans, but a widespread misconception that followed both actors after the special aired. For Hartley, this must have felt like an incredibly frustrating case of déjà vu, because she had dealt with the exact same situation just a few years earlier during her famous Polaroid camera commercials with actor James Garner. Those commercials featured Hartley and Garner playing a married couple with such convincing warmth and rapport that American audiences simply assumed they were actually husband and wife off camera. The confusion became so pervasive and annoying that Hartley eventually had T-shirts printed up that said, "I am not James Garner's wife," just to set the record straight. She wore the shirt to public appearances and even on television shows to combat the persistent rumor. So when the Halloween that almost wasn't created a similar situation with Hirsch, Hartley must have wondered what it was about her on-screen presence that kept causing these mix-ups. The irony is that the special story actually involves romantic tension between the witch and Dracula, which only added fuel to the fire for viewers who wanted to believe the actors were really together. Fact 5. Frankenstein would later become Herman Munster. John Schuck, who played Frankenstein's monster in the Halloween that almost wasn't, would go on to wear very similar monster makeup less than a decade later when he starred as Herman Munster in The Munsters Today, a revival series that ran from 1988 to 1991. This made Schuck one of the few actors to portray Frankenstein-inspired characters in 2 different productions, both times going through the extensive makeup process required to transform into the iconic flat-topped monster. The Munsters Today was a syndicated sitcom that attempted to recapture the magic of the original 1960s series, with Herman Munster being directly based on the Universal Pictures version of Frankenstein's monster, just like the character Schuck played in the Halloween special. Schuck brought a gentle, lovable quality to both roles, emphasizing the monster's childlike innocence and good heart, rather than playing up any frightening aspects. His experience in The Halloween That Almost Wasn't, where he had to make Frankenstein's monster sympathetic and funny rather than scary, probably served him well when he took on the Munster role, which required similar comedic timing and physical comedy skills. The fact that both productions used makeup designs inspired by the classic Universal Frankenstein films means that Schuck essentially spent 2 separate periods of his career sitting in makeup chairs for hours to have bolts attached to his neck and his face covered in green paint. Fact 6. Contains a hidden young Frankenstein reference. During one memorable scene in The Halloween That Almost Wasn't, Frankenstein's monster breaks into a tap-dancing routine that seems charmingly random at first, but is actually a direct homage to Mel Brooks' comedy masterpiece Young Frankenstein, which had been released just 5 years earlier in 1974. In Brooks' film, there's a famous scene where the monster, played by Peter Boyle, performs "Puttin' on the Ritz" in full top hat and tails, tap dancing alongside Gene Wilder's Dr. Frankenstein in one of the movie's most iconic musical moments. The Halloween special clearly wanted to capture some of that same comedic magic by having its own Frankenstein bust out some fancy footwork. But the reference goes even deeper than just the tap dancing itself. Some of the dialogue in the special contains subtle hints that suggest this is meant to be the same Frankenstein's monster from the Mel Brooks universe, or at least that the writers wanted viewers familiar with Young Frankenstein to make that connection. The special leans into the comedy inherent in these classic monsters rather than trying to make them genuinely frightening. And Young Frankenstein had proven just a few years earlier that audiences loved seeing these legendary creatures portrayed with humor and heart. The tap-dancing moment serves as a wink to parents watching with their kids who would recognize the reference, while still being entertaining enough on its own terms that children who hadn't seen the Brooks film could enjoy it. Fact 7. 1 Emmy for makeup, lost for everything else. The Halloween That Almost Wasn't earned multiple Emmy nominations for the 1979 to 1980 television season, but only one of those nominations resulted in an actual win, creating a bittersweet situation where the special was recognized as excellent but fell short in most categories. Bob Obradovich took home the Emmy Award for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Makeup, a well-deserved victory considering the impressive transformation work required to turn the actors into convincing versions of classic movie monsters. Creating believable looks for Count Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, the werewolf, the mummy, and zombie took considerable skill and artistry, especially on what was surely a television budget rather than a big Hollywood film budget. However, the special received nominations in several other categories and lost every single one of them. Mariette Hartley was nominated for Outstanding Individual Achievement by a performer in a children's program for her work as the witch, but didn't win. The special also received nominations for Outstanding Achievement in Film Editing for a special and for Outstanding Children's Program, but came up empty-handed in both categories. The critical acclaim was clearly there, with Emmy voters recognizing the quality of the production across multiple disciplines. But when it came time to hand out the actual awards, only Obradovich's makeup work was deemed the absolute best in its category that year. Still, being nominated for 4 Emmys and winning one is nothing to sneeze at for a Halloween television special. Fact 8. Sponsored by Kenner Toys. During original broadcast, when the Halloween that almost wasn't aired on ABC in 1979, the commercial breaks were filled with advertisements from the special's primary sponsor, Kenner Products, the toy company behind some of the most popular action figures and toys of that era. Kenner was responsible for the wildly successful Star Wars toy line, as well as beloved products like Easy Bake Ovens, Play-Doh, and Care Bears. So having them as a sponsor meant the special was punctuated with commercials showcasing the hottest toys that kids would be begging their parents for that Christmas season. For viewers watching the original broadcast, these Kenner toy commercials became an integral part of the viewing experience, creating a time capsule of late 1970s childhood that's impossible to recreate with modern streaming or home video versions. Interestingly, some adults who watched the special as children have noted that they remember certain Kenner toy commercials from that broadcast as being low-key terrifying, suggesting that the advertisements themselves sometimes had an unsettling quality that matched the spooky but kid-friendly tone of the special. This was an era when toy commercials could be surprisingly intense or strange, using dramatic music, fast cuts, and sometimes genuinely eerie imagery to sell products to children. The combination of the Halloween special and these memorable toy ads created a complete viewing experience that defined Halloween television for a generation of kids. Fact 9. Aired on Disney Channel for 13 years straight. After its initial ABC broadcast, the Halloween that almost wasn't found a second life as an annual Halloween tradition on Disney Channel, where it aired every single year from 1983 to 1996, an impressive 13-year run that introduced the special to multiple new generations of children. The special became a regular part of Disney Channel's Halloween programming, often appearing during their Disney's Halloween Treat programming block, which showcased various spooky but family-friendly content throughout October. This consistent annual airing on Disney Channel is actually how most people who remember the special from their childhood encountered it, since many more households had access to Disney Channel throughout the 1980s and 90s than had caught the original ABC broadcast back in '79. The Disney Channel exposure also helped cement the special's status as a legitimate Halloween classic, giving it the same kind of cultural staying power as other beloved holiday specials that get wheeled out year after year. For 13 consecutive Octobers, kids could count on seeing Count Dracula and the Halloween-hating witch return to their television screens, making it as much a part of their Halloween traditions as carving pumpkins or going trick-or-treating. The special's run on Disney Channel finally ended in 1996, after which it became much harder to find and slowly faded from regular television rotation, though it remained fondly remembered by those who had grown up watching it every Halloween. Fact 10 ends with Saturday Night Fever parody. The Halloween that almost wasn't concludes with one of the most bizarre and delightfully weird endings in children's television history, featuring a full-blown disco sequence that directly parodies Saturday Night Fever, complete with costume transformations that seem ripped from other late 1970s pop culture phenomena. In the final moments of the special, the witch performs a spinning transformation that's clearly modeled after Linda Carter's iconic Wonder Woman transformation from the Wonder Woman television series, twirling around until her dark witch outfit magically changes into a glamorous disco outfit complete with a sparkly dress perfect for the dance floor. But it doesn't stop there. Count Dracula, not wanting to be outdone, dramatically rips off his traditional vampire cape to reveal that underneath he's wearing a white leisure suit, virtually identical to the one John Travolta's character, Tony Manero, wore in Saturday Night Fever, which had taken the world by storm just 2 years before the special aired. The special then ends with disco music playing as the characters dance and celebrate, embracing the late 70s disco craze with an enthusiasm that probably seemed perfectly natural in 1979, but appears absolutely surreal when watched today. This ending transforms the special from a relatively straightforward Halloween story into a time capsule of late 70s pop culture, capturing a moment when disco was still king and it seemed perfectly reasonable to have classic movie monsters suddenly start dancing to the Bee Gees. Fact 11. Frankenstein complains about stolen body parts. One of the funnier running gags in the Halloween that almost wasn't involves Frankenstein's monster complaining about physical discomfort, which leads to a joke that cleverly references the character's famous origin story from Mary Shelley's novel and the Universal Pictures films. At one point during the special, Frankenstein starts grumbling that his feet are hurting, probably from all the walking around the castle or perhaps from the tap dancing he's been doing. Count Dracula, showing absolutely no sympathy for his monster friend's complaints, snaps back with the cutting remark, "I happen to know those aren't your feet." It's a perfect callback to the essential nature of Frankenstein's monster as a creature assembled from various body parts stolen from different corpses, meaning that literally nothing about his body is originally his own. The feet that are hurting him belong to some other poor soul before being stitched onto his reanimated body by Dr. Frankenstein. This kind of joke works on multiple levels, being silly enough for kids to find funny even if they don't fully understand the implications, while also giving adults watching with their children a more sophisticated laugh rooted in their knowledge of the Frankenstein story. It's the kind of clever writing that makes the Halloween that almost wasn't more than just a simple children's special, showing that the writers were actually thinking about the mythology behind these famous monsters rather than just using them as generic Halloween decorations. Fact 12. Never released on DVD or Blu-ray. Despite its cult following and the genuine affection that an entire generation of viewers holds for the Halloween that almost wasn't, the special has never received an official release on DVD or Blu-ray, making it frustratingly difficult for fans to watch in high quality or to introduce to their own children. The only home video release the special ever received was that 1992 VHS edition titled "The Night Dracula Saved the World," and once the VHS format became obsolete, the special essentially disappeared from legitimate commercial availability. This lack of a modern release has turned those old VHS copies into surprisingly valuable collector's items, with copies selling on eBay and other secondary markets for anywhere from $90 to $100, which is a remarkable price for a single VHS tape of a children's Halloween special. The absence of any DVD or Blu-ray release likely comes down to complicated rights issues, which often plague older television specials when multiple parties own different aspects of the production and distribution rights. Without someone sorting out who owns what and being willing to invest in a proper restoration and release, the special remains trapped in home video limbo, accessible only through old VHS tapes, unofficial recordings, or occasional appearances on streaming services that may or may not have the proper rights. This scarcity has only increased the special's cult status, with fans sharing their worn VHS copies or digital transfers like precious artifacts from their childhoods. Fact 13 features Scooby-Doo style fast motion chase the Halloween. That almost wasn't includes a chase sequence where the monsters pursue the witch through the castle, and the scene is deliberately filmed using sped-up fast-motion photography that creates a comedic effect similar to what was used in classic 1960s sitcoms like the Munsters. This technique, where the action is filmed at normal speed but then played back faster during editing, gives the chase a bouncy, frantic quality that emphasizes the humor rather than any sense of real danger or scariness. The fast motion style was also a staple of Hanna-Barbera cartoons, particularly Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?, where chase scenes featuring the gang running from monsters were often animated with that same exaggerated, zippy energy that made them funny rather than frightening. By using this technique in live action, the Halloween that almost wasn't creates a visual bridge between classic sitcom comedy and Saturday morning cartoons, making the monsters feel less like genuine threats and more like bumbling characters in a slapstick comedy. The Munsters reference is particularly fitting since John Schuck, who plays Frankenstein's monster in the special, would later go on to play Herman Munster in the Munsters Today revival series. The fast motion chase also helps keep the special's tone firmly in the realm of light-hearted fun, ensuring that younger viewers won't be genuinely scared by the sight of monsters chasing someone through a dark castle. Fact 14. The witch started as Spock's love interest. Before Mariette Hartley became the Halloween-hating witch in The Halloween That Almost Wasn't, she had already established herself as a memorable guest star on one of television's most beloved science fiction series. A full decade before the Halloween special aired, Hartley appeared in the Star Trek episode All Our Yesterdays, which was broadcast in March of 1969 during the show's third and final season. In that episode, Hartley played Zarabeth, a woman exiled to a planet's Ice Age past who becomes Mr. Spock's love interest in what remains one of the most emotionally powerful episodes in the original series. Hartley's performance as Zarabeth was so affecting that Star Trek fans still remember the episode fondly, and it helped establish her as an actress who could bring depth and humanity to science fiction and fantasy roles. The contrast between her Star Trek character and her witch role couldn't be more dramatic. Zarabeth was a tragic figure, isolated and lonely, desperate for companionship in her frozen exile, while the witch is fierce, angry, and determined to cancel Halloween because she's tired of being stereotyped as ugly and evil. Both roles, however, showcase Hartley's ability to find the emotional truth in fantastical situations, whether she's playing an alien exile falling in love with a Vulcan or a witch demanding to be treated with dignity and respect. Fact 15 features a feminist message, ahead of its time. While The Halloween That Almost Wasn't might seem like just another lighthearted Halloween special on the surface, its central conflict actually carries a surprisingly progressive message about self-acceptance and equality that was fairly advanced for children's programming in 1979. The entire plot revolves around the witch's decision to cancel Halloween because she's tired of being portrayed as ugly and evil, fed up with the constant stereotyping that comes with being a witch, where everyone assumes she's hideous and wicked just because of what she is. At one point in the special, she explicitly demands equal rights, framing her grievance in language that echoes the feminist movement of the 1970s, particularly the push for the Equal Rights Amendment that was a major political issue during that era. The resolution doesn't simply force her to go along with Halloween despite her complaints. Instead, the monsters have to actually listen to her concerns and convince her that she's valued and loved for who she really is, not just for the role she plays in scaring children on Halloween. The special's message about inner beauty and the importance of being seen and appreciated for your true self rather than surface appearances or stereotypes was genuinely ahead of its time for a children's program, especially one built around classic movie monsters. It takes what could have been a simple story about saving Halloween and transforms it into something with real emotional resonance about acceptance and self-worth.